Captain Jace Mercer had faced many dangers in his life. As a human soldier stationed on the fringes of colonized space, he had survived alien ambushes, violent storms, and treacherous terrain, but nothing prepared him for the sight he encountered that morning. The forest stretched endlessly before him, jagged cliffs and tangled roots forming a maze that would challenge even the most skilled scout. Sunlight barely filtered through the thick canopy, and the air was damp, filled with the scent of wet earth and the faint metallic tang of blood. It was the faint sound of a whimper that drew him off the beaten path. Jace crouched low, moving silently, his eyes scanning the shadows. The noise came again, weak but unmistakable, a soft, desperate cry. He pushed past the thick underbrush, and there she was, a small alien girl, lying on the ground, her body twisted at an unnatural angle. Her skin was pale, lavender, and delicate patterns of shimmering markings ran across her arms and neck. Blood stained the torn fabric of her tunic, and her breathing was shallow and irregular. Jace froze for a moment, noting the danger. She was from a species known to be hostile toward humans, a warrior race that often attacked unprovoked. But something about her vulnerability, the fear and pain in her eyes, stirred a different feeling in him. This was no warrior, no threat. She was a child in need. He had a duty to help, and nothing else mattered. He approached carefully, speaking softly in a voice meant to soothe. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl's eyes widened, her pupils large and shimmering. She tried to speak, but a gurgle escaped her throat, and her strength faltered. Jace realized she could not move on her own. The terrain was rough and unforgiving, and if he left her here, she would not survive the night. There was no time to think, no time to worry about allegiance or politics. Jace hoisted her carefully into his arms. Her body was light but fragile, and he adjusted his hold to avoid putting pressure on her injuries. The moment he lifted her, she made a small, almost imperceptible sound of distress, but she did not resist. The journey ahead would be long, 20 miles through a forest filled with unknown dangers. Jace took a deep breath and began. Every step was calculated, careful. As he navigated the uneven ground, he thought about the soldiers back at the outpost, the medics who would know what to do. She needed help, and he would bring her there, no matter what it took. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and the forest seemed to stretch endlessly. Jace's muscles ached. His back burned, but he did not slow. The girl's breathing was faint but steady, and he felt a quiet determination strengthen inside him. He remembered the stories his father had told him as a child, about courage and responsibility. Those stories had seemed abstract then, but now they were his reality. He would not abandon her. As they moved, the forest seemed almost alive. Strange creatures scuttled through the underbrush, their eyes glinting with curiosity or hunger. Birds with iridescent feathers watched silently from the branches above. At one point, a pack of small, predatory animals lunged from the shadows, their sharp claws and teeth gleaming. Jace reacted instantly, swinging his arm and forcing the creatures back with a mix of strength and precision. The girl stirred, her eyes opening wide, but she did not panic. She seemed to sense that he was her protector, her guardian in this strange, dangerous world. By midday, Jace found a small clearing and set the girl down gently, careful not to jostle her injured body. He examined her more closely. Her skin, though marred with bruises and cuts, glimmered faintly in the sunlight. Her face was delicate, with features that seemed almost human but distinctly alien. The large, luminous eyes, the high cheekbones, the thin ridges along her brow. There was a faint pulse at her wrist, and he could feel the rapid beat of her heart. She was alive, and that was what mattered. Jace rummaged through his pack, pulling out bandages, antiseptic gel, and water. He cleaned the worst of the wounds, carefully wrapping them to stop the bleeding. She flinched at the touch, but did not resist. Her eyes watched him closely, and though she could not speak, he sensed the faintest flicker of trust. "You're safe for now," he said softly. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you." He could feel the weight of her body, the fragile life he carried in his arms, and it filled him with a strange mixture of awe and responsibility. This was no ordinary mission. This was something more, something personal. Every step he took from here on would be a test of endurance, patience, and resolve. The journey resumed, and the forest began to change. The trees grew taller. Their trunks twisted into strange shapes, and the ground became uneven. With roots jutting out like natural traps, Jace gritted his teeth and pressed on. The girl remained quiet, her breathing steady but faint, as if she had surrendered herself to his care. As the hours passed, Jace's mind wandered to the bigger picture. He did not know her name. He did not know her species fully, only what he had learned from intelligence briefings. He did not know why she was here, why she had been wounded, or who had attacked her. All he knew was that she needed him, and he would not fail. Night began to fall, and the forest took on a new level of menace. Shadows deepened, and strange noises echoed around them. Jace tightened his grip, keeping his senses alert. He spotted the faint glimmer of eyes in the darkness, small predators watching. Waiting. He whispered to the girl, "Stay still. Stay calm. I've got you." Hours turned into a grueling night march. He rested only briefly, setting her down for moments when he could not continue holding her without collapsing. Each pause was agonizing, each movement a careful calculation. He spoke to her gently the whole time, though she could not respond. "Almost there. You'll be safe soon. Just hold on." His words were as much for himself as for her. Finally, just before dawn, the outline of the human outpost appeared through the trees. Jace felt a surge of relief. He quickened his pace, carrying the girl with renewed energy, ignoring the numbness in his arms and the ache in his legs. Soldiers on patrol noticed him and quickly moved to assist. Medics rushed forward, taking the girl from his arms and examining her with professional efficiency. "She's alive," one of the medics said. Jace nodded, his body trembling from exhaustion. But there was no time for celebration. He watched as they worked, ensuring she was stable, and he realized something profound. He had risked everything for someone he did not even know, someone who might be considered an enemy. Yet the act of compassion, of selfless endurance, had not weakened him, it had defined him. The girl's eyes met his briefly as she was carried away. There was no recognition, no words, but something passed between them, a silent understanding. A bond forged in hardship. Jace turned away, allowing the medics to take over, and felt a sense of purpose settle deep in his chest. He did not know what the future held. He did not know who she truly was, or how her survival would impact the universe. All he knew was that he had done what he believed was right, and in that moment, amidst the danger, exhaustion, and uncertainty, Jace Mercer realized that being human meant more than surviving. It meant caring, protecting, and never turning away when someone needed you most. As dawn broke over the outpost, the forest behind him seemed less threatening, less alive with hidden dangers. Jace knew that this was only the beginning of a story far larger than the 20 miles he had crossed. Somewhere in the universe, the tiny, wounded alien girl he had carried was alive, and her survival was now intertwined with his own fate in ways he could not yet imagine. And though he did not know it yet, the girl he had saved would change everything for him, for humanity, and for the galaxy. The outpost was buzzing with activity when Jace arrived. Soldiers and medics moved quickly, preparing for threats and checking security. But their attention shifted immediately to the alien girl he had carried for 20 miles. She lay on a cot, her breathing steady now, though her face was pale and tired. Jace stayed nearby, unable to step away, not yet. Something about her presence demanded his attention, though he could not have explained why. A senior medic, Dr. Lena Korvik, examined her carefully. "She's lucky," Lena said quietly to Jace. "Most would not survive what she's gone through." Jace nodded, but his mind was restless. "Do you know who she is?" he asked. Lena hesitated. "Not fully. She's from a species we've only encountered on the border of enemy space. They're called the Solari. Not much is known, but their technology and training are advanced. If she is important to them, it could cause a problem." Jace frowned. He had carried her for 20 miles without thinking of danger. Now, that danger felt real. He stepped closer to the cot, watching her carefully. She lay still, her eyes closed, faint glimmers of light reflecting from her markings. Even in rest, there was grace in her form, delicate yet strong. He could sense intelligence and awareness beneath the pain. The door to the medbay opened, and a group of officials entered, their expressions tense. Among them was Commander Harlan, a man known for strict discipline and zero tolerance for errors, his eyes fixed on Jace and the girl, sharp and calculating. "Captain Mercer," Harlan said, his voice firm. "Explain what you've done." Jace straightened. "Sir, I found her wounded and unable to move. She needed help. I carried her here." Harlan's gaze shifted to the girl. "Do you know what you've brought into this outpost?" "I know she's alive," Jace replied, "and that's what matters." The commander's eyes narrowed. "She is more than just alive. She is Princess Liara, heir to the Solari throne." The words hit Jace like a shockwave. He staggered slightly, trying to absorb the information. Princess? Enemy? He had carried an enemy's princess for 20 miles, risking his life and possibly complicating the fragile relations between species. "Princess Liara," Jace repeated. "You mean she's important?" "Yes," Harlan said. "Extremely important. Her survival is critical to their empire. If word spreads that you saved her, it could be seen as a strategic threat, or worse, an act of betrayal." Jace felt the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. He had acted purely out of compassion, without concern for politics or allegiance. And now that act had consequences he could not have imagined. Liara stirred, her eyes fluttering open. The first thing she saw was Jace standing nearby. Her gaze was sharp, assessing, almost piercing. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she tried to speak, but her voice was weak, barely a whisper. "Human," she said. Jace's heart skipped a beat. "Yes, I'm Jace. You're safe now." Liara's eyes narrowed slightly. "Safe?" Her tone was skeptical, laced with disbelief. You carried me?" "I did," he said simply. "I couldn't leave you. You were hurt." Her gaze softened slightly, though it remained guarded. She was a princess, trained to be cautious. Yet something about his presence, the steady, unwavering care he had shown, was breaking through her defenses. Dr. Lena intervened, gently speaking to Liara. "Princess, you're safe. You're being cared for. Rest now. And you'll recover." Liara's eyes flicked between Jace and Lena, a mixture of curiosity and suspicion in her expression. She was not used to relying on anyone, especially a human. Her species had taught her to survive through strength, cunning, and distrust. Yet here was a human, exhausted, covered in cuts and dirt, who had risked himself without hesitation to protect her. Jace's mind raced. He had expected hostility, perhaps fear, even anger from her. But instead, there was something else, a faint recognition that his actions were not meant to harm. Something unspoken passed between them, fragile and delicate. Over the next few hours, the medics stabilized her injuries. Jace remained nearby, quietly observing. Liara finally spoke again, her voice stronger, though still tinged with the faintest vulnerability. "Why? Would you help me?" she asked. Jace hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because it was the right thing to do. You needed help. I didn't think about your title, your species, or what might happen. I just helped." Liara studied him for a long moment, her eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and something more complicated. No one in her life had ever acted purely out of kindness, without expecting something in return. Her people valued strategy, advantage, and survival, yet here was a human who had acted without any of those considerations. "You are different," she said finally. Jace allowed himself a small, tired smile. "Different can be good sometimes." The tension in the room remained, however. Harlan and the officials whispered among themselves, debating how to handle the situation. Jace sensed their unease but tried to focus on the girl before him. She was more than a political symbol now, she was a living being who had survived against incredible odds, thanks to his actions. Night fell, and the medbay quieted. Liara rested, her breathing even and calm. Jace remained near, keeping watch. He could not shake the feeling that her survival would change everything, not just for her, but for him, and perhaps for humanity as well. In the following days, Liara's recovery progressed. She began to move cautiously, testing her strength. Her curiosity about Jace grew, though she masked it behind a careful, measured demeanor. She asked questions about humans, about life in the outpost, and about his motivations. Each answer revealed a little more of the human spirit, resilience, compassion, and a capacity to act selflessly, even when danger loomed. One afternoon, Liara spoke quietly as they sat in the sunlight filtering through the medbay windows. "You carried me across the forest, through storms, predators, and danger. You never stopped." Jace shrugged lightly. "I told you, you needed help. It didn't matter what else was in the way." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she allowed a faint, genuine smile. "Most humans would not. They would have left me." "Most humans," he said. "Maybe. But I'm not most humans." That simple statement, spoken with quiet certainty, seemed to shift something in her. She had been trained to see humans as enemies, unpredictable and dangerous. But now, in front of her, was one who had carried her for miles, protected her, and acted with unwavering integrity. As days turned into a week, their bond deepened. Liara's respect for Jace grew, though she did not fully understand it. He had saved her life, yes, but he had also shown her a glimpse of a humanity she had never seen. His actions spoke louder than words, acts of courage and kindness that could not be measured in diplomacy or strategy. Meanwhile, the outpost adjusted to the presence of the Solari princess. Security was heightened, and discussions of diplomacy and communication with her people began. Jace found himself navigating not only his role as a soldier but also as a guardian. Someone responsible for bridging the gap between two very different worlds. One evening, Liara approached him quietly while the rest of the medbay was empty. Her expression was serious, yet there was a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. "Human, Jace," she said softly. I do not know what to feel. You carried me. You risked yourself. And yet, I am supposed to see you as... what? A friend? An enemy?" Jace looked at her steadily. "You don't have to define it right now. You just have to know. I'll protect you, no matter what. That's all that matters." Liara's gaze lingered on him, searching for some hidden meaning, some deception, but there was none. In his eyes, she saw honesty, courage, and a commitment she had never expected. She realized then that this human, this simple, steadfast man was different. He had shown her that strength was not just about power, strategy, or dominance. True strength could be measured by the courage to care for someone else, even an enemy. As the night deepened, Liara retreated to her cot, leaving Jace to reflect. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders but also a strange sense of hope. Humanity had always faced challenges in the galaxy, often underestimated by others. Yet in this quiet, unexpected moment, he realized that simple acts of compassion could resonate far beyond the battlefield. They could change lives, perhaps even change the course of history. And as he watched over her sleeping form, Jace did not yet know the full consequences of his actions. He did not know that the bond he had formed with Liara would alter not only his life but the fate of both their species. But for now, there was peace, fragile and fleeting, and a sense of purpose that he had never felt so strongly. He had carried her 20 miles through danger, uncertainty, and pain, and in doing so, he had unknowingly carried the seed of something far greater, something that would test both courage and compassion, and redefine what it meant to be human in a vast, unpredictable universe. The days that followed Liara's recovery brought new challenges. She had regained enough strength to move freely, though she remained cautious, aware that every glance and gesture could carry meaning in this strange human outpost. For Jace, the challenge was different. He had to navigate the uncertainty of her presence. He had acted purely out of compassion when he carried her through the forest. But now, the reality of her identity as the Solari princess cast a long shadow over every decision. One morning, Liara approached him as he inspected the perimeter of the outpost. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and violet, and the distant hum of alien wildlife echoed softly through the trees. She moved with quiet grace, her posture alert yet fluid, like a predator tamed by circumstance. "Human," she said, her voice steady. "I have been observing you. You care for me. Not for reward, not for duty, but for yourself." Jace paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "I care because it was right. You were in danger. You still are. That's all there is to it." Liara studied him for a moment, her luminous eyes reflecting curiosity and something deeper, a question she dared not voice. Her species had taught her to measure every action, every gesture, but Jace's behavior was not a calculation. It was instinctive, unwavering, and baffling to her. "I do not understand humans," she admitted quietly. "We measure worth by skill, by position, by advantage. But you measure by kindness." Jace smiled faintly. "Kindness is stronger than any weapon. Don't underestimate it." Despite the peace of the morning, tension lingered in the outpost. News of the Solari princess had spread quickly among higher-ranking officials. Meetings were held behind closed doors, plans drawn and redrawn. Some feared that Jace's actions would be seen as a breach of protocol, a potential betrayal. Others worried about the political consequences if Liara returned to her empire. Jace tried to focus on what mattered most, keeping Liara safe. But the subtle pressure was unavoidable. Soldiers whispered in the corridors, eyes darting toward him and the princess. Commanders debated contingency plans, and he realized that the simple act of saving her had grown into a responsibility far beyond anything he had imagined. It was during a routine medical check that the next shock arrived. Dr. Lena approached him quietly, her expression grave but tinged with disbelief. "Captain," she said, lowering her voice, "we need to talk. It's unexpected." Jace followed her to a quieter room. "What is it?" he asked, a sense of unease creeping over him. Lena looked at him carefully. "Princess Liara. She is pregnant." The words hit him like a thunderclap. He staggered slightly, struggling to comprehend what she meant. "Pregnant? How? When?" Lena shook her head. "We don't know exactly. But the signs are clear. This is not a complication, it's real. The embryo is healthy, developing normally. There's no reason to panic medically. But this changes everything." Jace's mind raced. The implications were immense. Not only was Liara the heir to a powerful alien empire, but now she carried a child. That child could be a symbol of unity, or a flashpoint for conflict. Every decision he made would be scrutinized, every action weighed for political and social consequences. When he returned to Liara, he did not immediately speak of it. She was sitting quietly, staring at the horizon. The glow of dawn reflected in her eyes, giving them an ethereal quality. "Liara," he said gently, "how are you feeling?" She turned her gaze to him, sharp and calculating, but with a subtle softness. "I am aware of change," she said, her voice carefully measured. "I feel life within me, and I do not know what it means." Jace nodded, keeping his tone steady. "It means you're strong, and it means we need to be careful. We'll face this together, step by step. You're not alone." Her expression flickered surprise, uncertainty, and the faintest hint of trust. She had been trained to rely on no one. Yet here was a human standing beside her, offering support without judgment, without expectation. That fact unsettled her, but it also stirred something unfamiliar: hope. The next days were filled with tension and adjustment. Liara's presence in the outpost became a focal point for diplomacy and scrutiny. High-ranking officials debated how to handle the news of her pregnancy, and Jace found himself in the middle of political and ethical dilemmas he had never anticipated. Yet amidst the tension, the bond between him and Liara grew. She observed him closely, noting his quiet diligence, his calm resolve, and the way he carried responsibility with patience rather than arrogance. He, in turn, learned more about her intelligence, her resilience, and the way she balanced caution with courage. One afternoon, while walking through the small gardens near the medbay, Liara broke the silence. "Human," she said, "I have been told that my survival depends on strategy, on cunning. Yet, you saved me without thought for politics or advantage. Why?" Jace looked at her, meeting her gaze steadily. "Because it was the right thing to do. Sometimes, doing the right thing is more important than winning a battle or following orders. You needed help, and I gave it. That's all." Liara considered his words carefully. Her people had taught her that survival required calculation, that emotion was weakness. Yet, Jace's actions suggested otherwise. Compassion, she realized, could be a form of strength. The realization unsettled her, forcing her to question the principles she had relied upon her entire life. In the quiet of that moment, something shifted between them. She allowed herself to feel gratitude and even trust, emotions she had long suppressed. Jace's steadfast presence became an anchor in her uncertain world, but the challenges were far from over. News of the pregnancy added complexity to their situation. Some human officials began to question how to manage the delicate balance between diplomacy and security. Soldiers whispered in hushed tones, speculating about alliances and potential threats. And beyond the walls of the outpost, the galaxy waited, its countless civilizations unaware that the fate of an unborn child could alter the course of human and alien relations. Jace faced the situation with the same determination he had shown in carrying Liara through the forest. Every decision he made was measured, cautious, but guided by one principle: protect her, ensure her survival, and act with integrity. The weight of responsibility was immense, but he accepted it without hesitation. One evening, Liara approached him again, her expression serious, yet tinged with curiosity. "Human. Jace," she said softly. "What happens now? My people, they will want answers. And this child, it changes everything. How do we navigate this?" Jace took a deep breath. "Step by step. We can't control everything, but we can protect what matters. Make choices guided by courage and care. That's what humans do. That's what I'll do for you." She studied him silently, then nodded. A subtle gesture of trust. It was fragile, delicate, yet profound. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that she was not alone, that the child she carried might be safe, and that this human, this man who had carried her 20 miles through danger, could be a partner in survival. Not just an unlikely guardian. As night fell over the outpost, Jace stood watch near the medbay. Liara rested quietly, her breathing even and calm. The weight of their shared journey hung between them, danger, trust, and the beginnings of something neither fully understood, yet in the stillness, there was hope. Jace thought of the forest, of the long trek he had endured to save her. He had acted without calculation, without thought for consequence. And now, that single act had set in motion events far greater than he could imagine. Liara's life, the child she carried, and the bond they shared were all intertwined in ways that could shape the future of two species. He did not know what the coming days would bring. He did not know how her people would react, or how humans would navigate the delicate politics. But he knew one thing. He would not abandon her. He would face whatever challenges arose, guided by courage, empathy, and the enduring belief that humanity's strength lay not just in weapons or technology, but in the ability to act with compassion when it mattered most. And so, as the stars twinkled overhead and the outpost settled into quiet, Jace Mercer stood vigilant. Somewhere within Liara, new life stirred a reminder of vulnerability, hope, and the unforeseen consequences of simple acts of courage. The bond they had forged through hardship would now face the ultimate test, and the choices ahead would determine not just their lives, but the destiny of those who looked to them as a symbol of what humanity could achieve. The days following the revelation of Liara's pregnancy were tense and uncertain. News of her condition had reached both human officials and the few trusted representatives of the Solari Empire within the galaxy. Whispers of diplomacy, alliances, and potential conflict echoed through the corridors of the outpost. Jace Mercer felt the weight of it all pressing on his shoulders. Every decision mattered, not just for Liara, but for the child she carried and the fragile relations between two species. Yet through it all, Jace remained steadfast. His concern was simple and singular. Keep Liara safe. The medbay became a center of protection and care. Soldiers and medics moved efficiently, ensuring she had what she needed. Liara, for her part, grew stronger each day, her trust in Jace deepening as she observed his unwavering commitment. Though she was the princess of an enemy empire, she began to see the man who had saved her as a true ally. Someone whose courage and kindness transcended politics. One morning, as the first rays of light cut through the medbay windows, Liara called Jace aside. She moved carefully, her steps measured, though her eyes shone with a quiet determination. "Human," she said softly. "The time has come. My people. They will demand answers soon. And the galaxy. It will not wait. What happens now?" Jace considered her question carefully. "Now, we face this together. Step by step. We focus on what we can control. Your safety, the child's safety, and the choices we make. Beyond that, we prepare, but we don't panic." Liara's gaze lingered on him, and for a moment, the princess allowed herself to feel something unfamiliar: trust. It was fragile, delicate, and unspoken, but it was real. I will follow your guidance," she said finally. "Not blindly, but because I believe you will protect me." The words brought a quiet sense of relief to Jace. He nodded. "And I will. No matter what." The next few days were a test of endurance and diplomacy. Solari emissaries arrived at the outpost under heavy guard, curious and cautious about the princess's well-being. Their expressions were unreadable, but their eyes carried the weight of expectation and scrutiny. Jace observed them carefully, knowing that any misstep could ignite conflict. Liara faced them with grace, speaking in measured tones, her body language controlled yet softening when she glanced at Jace. The emissaries were surprised to see the bond that had formed between the human and the princess. They could sense it. Subtle but undeniable, a connection forged through danger, compassion, and shared experience. One evening, as the outpost settled into quiet, Liara confided in Jace privately. "Human, I have learned much from you. My people teach strength, cunning, and vigilance. But you teach courage of a different kind. The courage to act when others would hesitate. The courage to care without expectation. I do not fully understand it. Yet I respect it." Jace smiled faintly. "It's what humans do best sometimes. We fight, we survive, but we also protect and care. That's our strength." Her eyes softened, reflecting a mixture of gratitude and contemplation. The child she carried moved faintly, and she placed a hand over her abdomen instinctively. "And this child? What will become of it?" Jace crouched beside her, his expression calm but serious. "We'll make sure it's safe. That's all I can promise. The rest, we take one step at a time." In the following weeks, Jace and Liara worked quietly to prepare for the challenges ahead. Security measures were increased, and careful discussions with human officials ensured that her safety was prioritized. Jace spent hours training with a small team of soldiers, planning contingency routes, and ensuring that every possible threat could be addressed swiftly. Liara, meanwhile, used her intelligence and insight to advise Jace on potential Solari tactics, her understanding of her people's methods invaluable. Together, they formed a partnership built on trust, respect, and a shared determination to protect the life growing within her. Tensions reached a climax when a contingent of Solari military scouts arrived unexpectedly, testing the outpost's defenses. Their ships hovered silently, scanning the perimeter, sending subtle signals of threat. Jace's heart pounded, but he remained composed. He had carried Liara through danger before. He could do it again. Inside the medbay, Liara observed the situation calmly. "Human, the scouts are here. They know I am safe. But they—" Jace placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we give them answers carefully. We show them that their princess is protected. But we also make it clear that the child is our priority. No one harms either of you." The standoff lasted hours. Negotiations were delicate. Words carefully chosen to prevent conflict while asserting authority. Liara's presence and her trust in Jace were key. The Solari emissaries saw the bond. And though they were cautious, they could not deny the sincerity of the human who had saved their princess. Slowly, the tension eased, and agreements were reached. That night, the outpost was quiet. The stars shone above, distant and constant. A reminder of the vast galaxy beyond. Liara and Jace sat together in the garden near the medbay, a rare moment of calm amidst the storm. "You have changed much for me," Liara said softly. "I came here expecting strangers, caution, and calculation. But you have shown me trust, care, and courage. I do not know how to repay such a gift." Jace shook his head lightly. "No repayment needed. Just live, stay safe, and let us protect what matters. That's enough." She studied him in silence, her expression a mixture of admiration and wonder. "You are different from all I have known. And yet, I believe the child I carry may inherit some of that difference. Perhaps the galaxy will see it as well." He smiled. "Then we make sure it grows in a safe place, surrounded by courage and care. That's the best any parent can do." Weeks passed, and Liara's strength returned fully. The pregnancy progressed steadily, and she adapted to her new reality with grace. Jace continued to stand by her side, vigilant and protective. The outpost became a symbol not just of human resilience, but of humanity's capacity for compassion, courage, and honor in the face of uncertainty. Word of their story spread quietly through the galaxy. Tales of a human soldier carrying an enemy princess across dangerous terrain, saving her life, and now protecting her unborn child reached distant worlds. Some dismissed it as legend. Others were inspired by the strength of the bond, the courage, and the humanity it represented. One morning, as Liara and Jace prepared to meet a Solari envoy in a neutral space, she turned to him. "Human, we have faced much together. And yet, the journey is not over. The galaxy will test us again." Jace met her gaze steadily. "We face it together. I'll protect you and the child. That's all I need to do." Her expression softened. "I believe you." The meeting with the envoy was tense but productive. Liara's health and the child's safety were prioritized, and careful diplomacy prevented conflict. The Solari recognized Jace's unwavering commitment and began to see humans not just as rivals, but as beings capable of honor and compassion. As the day ended, Liara returned to the medbay, her hand resting gently on her abdomen. She looked at Jace, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Thank you, human, for everything. You have changed more than my life. You have changed the future." Jace nodded quietly. "I only did what was right. The rest, we build together." In that moment, the bond between them was undeniable. The trials of the past, 20 miles through danger, the harsh forest, uncertainty, and fear, had forged a connection that could not be broken. Liara, the princess of an enemy empire, and Jace, the steadfast human soldier, had defied expectations, showing that courage, compassion, and integrity could shape destinies. And as the stars shimmered above the outpost, Jace reflected on the journey. Humanity's strength lay not only in technology or weapons but in the courage to act with heart, to protect those in need, and to face danger without hesitation. The galaxy had witnessed a single act of bravery, a human carrying a wounded alien princess through peril, and now, it would remember that act in the generations to come. The child within Liara stirred faintly, a quiet heartbeat against the vastness of space. Jace reached out, placing his hand over hers, a silent promise to protect both mother and child. Together, they faced the uncertain future, guided by courage, empathy, and the enduring belief that humanity's truest power was the ability to care. Even when the odds were impossible, the outpost rested in quiet harmony that night. The distant stars, a testament to the vast possibilities of the universe. And within that quiet, the beginnings of a new chapter were written, one of hope, trust, and the undeniable proof that humanity, even in a galaxy filled with uncertainty and conflict, could shine brightly through acts of courage and compassion.